As we move on to discuss the nature of humanity, we have to make a distinction between humanity before the fall into sin when Adam and Eve, tempted by the serpent, disobeyed and ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So humanity before the fall, the fancy term for that is pre-lapsarian, and humanity after the fall, the fancy term for that is post-lapsarian. Adam and Eve neither lost nor gained humanity in the fall. The image of God in the narrow sense was part of human nature and not its sum. So our distinctly human nature is retained in the fall. Adam and Eve don't become less human after the fall. They become corrupted humans. So we get a worse picture of what humanity is actually supposed to be like now that we're corrupted by sin, but they're not less human. They're still human, so to speak. So corrupted by sin, that would be the post-lapsarian status of humanity, and originally righteous and holy, that would be the pre-lapsarian status of humanity. And in Jesus Christ, who is the righteous and holy one, he comes to restore to humanity that holiness and righteousness by grace through faith in him. And that's the work of the Holy Spirit in the life of the believer, producing his fruit in us of love, joy, peace, patience, and kindness, all things that Jesus has. And that's a work that will be completed when we die and are with Christ and then are raised on the last day and are made new, both body and soul, on the day that Jesus makes all things new, including us. So that's what we move into next, the nature of humanity as both body and soul. Called to Believe has this definition of a human being as an intelligent and moral being consisting of a body and soul united in one person. And of course, the human being is the one creature uniquely made in God's image. Now, the human body is more described than any other creaturely body in all of creation. Human beings you can think of as embodied souls and ensouled bodies, right? I don't want you to think of yourself as a soul inside a body or as a body and you have a soul. You are a soul. You are a body. You are both. Your one person unites these two things together, body and soul, that they are both essential to our nature. And we are created male and female with body and soul. The Bible teaches that in the resurrection, human beings are going to have their bodies for all eternity. So while we can see death as a temporary separation of body and soul, Paul says that to depart from the body, to be absent from the body, is to be present with the Lord, right? So you can see death as a temporary departure, being absent from your body while your soul is present with the Lord as a believer. But on the resurrection day, your body and soul is united. Actually, everybody's is. Daniel 12, multitudes who sleep in the dust of the earth will awake, some to everlasting life, others to shame and everlasting contempt. So Jesus teaches the same thing in John chapter 5, that the day is coming when the Son of Man will say the word and people will hear his voice and come out of the tombs, those who have done good to life and those who have done evil to judgment. So everybody is going to be raised. Death is temporary in the term of being separated, body and soul. You will come back together, body and soul, and we will all stand together, believers and unbelievers, before Jesus on Judgment Day. And then tragically, unbelievers will enter the place intended for the devil and for demons, not intended for humans. But unbelievers will body and soul enter hell, and believers will body and soul, new body, enter heaven. Right? So 1 Corinthians 15 talks about the resurrected body. It says there are heavenly bodies and there are earthly bodies, but the splendor of the heavenly body is one kind and the splendor of the earthly bodies is another. So we look forward to a new spiritual, heavenly, still physical, new body that we're raised to in heaven, because these bodies are corrupted by sin. I'll save this for another lesson. Now, your soul. Humans are both body and soul, embodied souls and ensouled bodies, and the soul is spiritual rather than material. In other words, your five senses, sight and touch and so on, cannot sense the soul. The soul is something immaterial. Right? The Greek word for soul is psyche. It's where we get a word like psyche or psychology in English. It's most often translated soul, sometimes life, sometimes persons in our English Bibles. Now, a reductionist view of the world would say you are just body, not soul. That's specifically called materialism. Sometimes people call it naturalism, but materialism is the more strict philosophical word for it. Materialism is the idea that all that exists is matter and motion. Everything is physics, and everything is governed by physics. There is no part of you that's not physical, says the materialist. That is a reductionist view of the human being. There is a part of you that is not physical because you are both body and soul, right? So we don't just believe you have a brain, we believe you have a mind, something that can't be seen or touched. We don't believe you just have like a beating heart, but we also believe you have a heart, a place where you feel and process emotions and so on. So there is both body and soul to the human being. Both are real. Death is the temporary separation of the two, and the resurrection is the reuniting of the two. Gnosticism sees your soul as your essence and your body as non-essential. The Gnostic view would see you as a soul, and your body is just something that your soul dwells in. But when you cast off your body, not a big deal. Actually, maybe even an improvement, right? And then you can just exist as pure soul. No, you are both soul and body. We don't have a Gnostic reductionism either, where we think your body is non-essential, something to escape, right? You are both body and soul. Jesus is both body and soul. What happens when we die? The soul returns to God who gave it, right? And the body is buried to the ground it came from, right? This is what we learn as the consequence of sin in Genesis. Dust you are, and to dust you shall return. And this is what Ecclesiastes say. The dust returns to the ground it came from, and the spirit returns to God who gave it. We see Jesus on the cross. His last words, Father, into your hands I commit my spirit. And then he breathed his last. So there his body hangs dead on the cross, but his spirit returns to God who gave it, right? And we know that when Jesus rises on the third day, his body and spirit are reunited. And that's what we look forward to too after death, resurrection and reuniting of our body and soul and reuniting of all of God's family together in Jesus. Luke 23, Jesus told the thief on the cross, today I tell you, you will be with me in paradise. Truly I tell you, today you will be with me in paradise. So we know the thief on the cross, his soul was with Jesus in paradise that very day, even though his body died. All right, we'll stop there. We'll get into human relations next time.